had a very good life growing up. In middle school, I started struggling with depression, and I remember being mad at God for that. I felt like he was the one who had wired my brain the way it was, and kind of blamed him for my struggles with depression. And that led to, some pretty destructive things in my life. Started getting into like smoking weed and drinking, and that did not help my mental state. Depression was getting more and more intense every year, and I started to also develop some psychotic issues. I started hearing voices, and depression just became extremely severe. So it came to a point, it was December in my junior year of high school. I think I was 17. I'd been on a bunch of medications, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, sleeping pills, and I hadn't been taking them for like 3 months, and ended up deciding that I didn't want to live anymore. So I wrote a note to my parents, apologizing to them, telling them that this wasn't their fault, that I just didn't want to live anymore, and I'm so sorry. So I took, it was a handful of completely full of pills that I took all at once. I drank a whole bottle of Russian brandy that was high proof, and then put more alcohol in my backpack and walked a mile away from my parents' house under a bridge so no one would be able to find me and save me. The next thing I remember, I'm in the hospital. Apparently, after blacking out under the bridge, I walked a mile back to my parents' house. I don't remember any of this, but my dad and sister were just about to leave. They were still there though, and they said that I opened the door and told them to call poison control, and then collapsed on the doorstep. Looking back at that now, I see that as God intervening in my life and literally saving my life that night. And that was a turning point in my life where I basically realized that my way of living was clearly not working. It was a turning point in realizing that I wasn't better than other people. You know, I think it's easy to grow up going to church and to kind of feel like you're on a better path than other people, and that, you know, to some extent you've earned where you're at with God. And that's not a healthy perspective in our spiritual lives. And God broke me of that to a large extent. So I turned to God in a new way at that point. I remember I was in the hospital bed the day after, just realizing how broken I was, and telling God that I realized that, and that I realized that I did need his death, that I wasn't good enough to earn my way to him, but that there had to be a substitute, that, you know, what he did on the cross was taking punishment for my sin. He had already did that, and it was more clear to me then than it had ever been in my life that I needed that, and that I had to reach out with humility, with empty hands, and just come to him. Paul says we were burdened excessively beyond our strength, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, we had the sentence of death written within our hearts, that we might learn not to trust in ourselves, but in God who raises the dead. I look back now and I'm so thankful for these times, because it was after these times of failure where I had finally given up on my own abilities and my own goodness, that I was able to experience this closeness with God that I had never had before, and that I've never had since. It's a closeness that you can't have in times of peace or of ease in your life. You can only find these times of closeness with God in times of desperation. Slowly, over time and over breaking, and often, a lot of it in the midst of depression, I feel like God slowly transformed me and began to transform my life. I look at my life now, and I've never been this happy, and it's been that way almost every year of my walk with God. That each year is better than the year before. I have an awesome marriage. I have an awesome family. I have an awesome business that allows me freedom. I have awesome things that God's given me to do. We're in this trade center right now, and there's this opportunity that's come across, that God's opened all these doors for me to do fun stuff with my hands, teaching young people a vocation. I don't know. It's just so cool as we trust God and abide in Him, the awesome things that He brings about in our lives. The only thing that's keeping us from God's blessings is us willing to just come to Him in humility. Like the prodigal son. The son had totally dishonored God and asked for his inheritance early, said, "You're dead to me," basically, Dad, and lived it up, doing whatever he wanted at the expense of others. And then he thought his dad was going to be pissed. And I think that's how we often feel, is that, man, God doesn't want to talk to me. I've messed up too bad. And this whole time, he's at home thinking about us, and just waiting for the day that we're gonna come walking back to him, and the excitement and joy that he's gonna have when we're walking back in our tattered state with nothing to offer, and tons of things messed up with us. He just wants us to come to him like that.